If you are here, there is about a 95% chance that you are from Kansas City. There is about a 97% chance that if you're not from Kansas City, you were at least from the greater Midwest area. And if you are here, there is a 100% chance that you are a Kansas City Chiefs fan, unless it is Bills week or Eagles week. Those two fan bases love to drop turds wherever they can. But because you are a Chiefs fan, there is something that I know about you, something psychological that I know about you. And that is, well, you love rooting for an underdog. The Chiefs, for most of our entire lives, have been underdogs. There is something, I believe, inherently Midwestern about being a fan of the underdog, about rooting for underdogs, about feeling yourself like an underdog. This is, after all, what is known as flyover country. This is an entire portion of the United States comprised of underdogs. So, in a roundabout way, you are uncomfortable. Why? Well, because the Kansas City Chiefs have not been underdogs for about 5 of the last 7 years, have not been underdogs at all in the last half a decade, and you don't know how to feel about it. Probably it is sending your sports fanhood into a bit of an existential crisis. It's kind of not fun to root for the overwhelming favorite. You haven't done it your entire life. But fret not, because though the Kansas City Chiefs will once again be favored in the NFL, and I feel myself, like Travis Kelce said, I think it was a couple days ago, something about not wanting to be America's team, something about not wanting to be the world's team. They keep trying to parade the Kansas City Chiefs around internationally. Phooey on that. Fret not, however. The Kansas City Chiefs do still have underdogs for whom we can root. And I want to give credit where it's due. Arrowhead Pride, Arrowheadline's article pointed this out. I would never have made this connection between these two sources on my own, but they did, and I want to give that credit to the Arrowheadline's title, Chiefs George Karlaftis, Noah Gray named underrated players from the Chiefs headlines for Friday, May 23rd. 2 articles, 2 websites. One idea, there are still players that you can root for if you are a fan of the underdogs on the Kansas City Chiefs. The first, picking the most underrated NFL players at every position. Edge rusher, George Karlaftis, Kansas City Chiefs, the most underrated edge rusher in the entirety of the NFL, says this article. If you want to find an underrated edge rusher, there's a general rule to follow. Look for someone who ranks a lot higher in pressures than sacks. That means he's getting to the quarterback and causing negative plays for the opponent, even if he doesn't get the press. A very interesting mindset, something that I myself had never thought to sort of encapsulate in this way. In 2024, Karlaftis was that guy. He followed up a 10.5 sack season in 2023 with 8 sacks last season, but his pressure total was far more impressive. Karlaftis was tied for 14th in the NFL with 44 pressures. He added 11 more pressures in 3 playoff games and had 3 sacks against the Texans in the AFC divisional round. For whatever reason, probably because of the Super Bowl, I had forgotten that. I did not remember that. He had 3 sacks against the Texans. I did not remember that. That would have to be one of the greatest playoff performances ever for a defensive player for the Kansas City Chiefs, would it not? George Karlaftis is very underrated here, very underrated in general. I think that he is a guy that on his second contract, it's going to be difficult for the Kansas City Chiefs to find them to sign him, because they're going to find that someone is willing to offer an absolute bag for George Karlaftis. But he's not a 13 sack guy. He's not a 15 sack guy. 10 and a half is a good total, but it is not something that is going to blow anyone away for a season high. It's possible he hits 12 sacks or so this season. He will have more help along that defensive line, but I do think that it's going to be difficult for the Chiefs to re-sign him, but not impossible. Because he has not been one of those absolute headline guys, I think it is still possible that he does have some affordability going for him and, frankly, for the Kansas City Chiefs as his date of free agency approaches. George Karlaftis would be very difficult to replace. So he's not been an absolute game changer, right? We can recognize that and still recognize the strengths that he provides to this defense. He has not been a 12-sack guy, like we said earlier, but his the force that he is on that defensive line stabilized it towards what the defense could be. And that has been absolutely integral to the Kansas City Chiefs on this 3 consecutive Super Bowl appearance run, the 2-ring run on which they found themselves. You will see every year players go in the first round at the edge position that completely wash out of the NFL. Why? Because it is such a valuable place, a valuable piece of the defense, that it is almost necessary, just like with quarterback, almost necessary to take swings at that position, and you just have to accept the fact every once in a while you're going to miss. So you come up with absolutely nothing. George Karlaftis is not a miss. And because of that, because he is a guy at the position that you can count on, there will be multiple bidders for his services. And then the article lists that, or the Arrowhead Pride article lists this as coming from PFF, but I believe this is from NFL.com. Most underappreciated NFL players, top candidate for each AFC team entering the 2025 season by Tom Blair. And if it is misattributed, like I said, I thought it was, this is why. For each AFC team, PFF loves to make every team articles, an article with just one small blurb for every team. For the Chiefs, they have Noah Gray. Gray's got 2 things propping up his underappreciated bona fides. One, he's just one of the many pass catchers to cycle into Patrick Mahomes' sights over the years. And 2, he's a non-Travis Kelce tight end in Kansas City, toiling in relative anonymity at the same position on the same team as one of the most famous people in the country. Very interesting observation there. It would be silly on multiple counts to suggest Gray will be the quote-unquote next Kelce, as if anyone could just jump in onto that Hall of Fame trajectory. But it would make sense for Gray's role in the offense to keep expanding, with the 35-year-old Kelce's yards per catch mark 8.5 plunging in 2024, while Gray reached new highs in usage, 49 targets, and production, 437 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns. Mahomes has thrown 1,175 passes to tight ends since he became the Chiefs starter in 2018, 347 more than any NFL quarterback in that span. That's a huge number, by the way. That is a huge number. Obviously, maybe not that many, maybe not that big. Well, yeah, no, absolutely. It's a big number. Obviously, many of those went to Kelce. And while we don't know what life will look like for Mahomes and company after Kelce moves on, it seems safe to say that Gray, who signed a 3-year extension in 2024, will figure heavily into that picture. This is also why we see the Kansas City Chiefs continue to poor resources, maybe not the highest end resources, but resources nonetheless. Draft picks, UDFA spots, free agents, trading draft picks for guys buried on other people's rosters. Pour resources into that tight end position, hoping to find a little bit more gold for the post-Kelce era. I don't think they'll have to. Not that the void left by Travis Kelce will be easy to fill, but because I think that they will be able to. Brett Veach seems sold on the idea of continuing to acquire wide receivers as well. And so long as guys are willing to sign with the Kansas City Chiefs for the mere opportunity to play with Patrick Mahomes because it will reinvigorate their careers, I think you will always have options at the level of Hollywood Brown from last year's signings, where guys are willing to come in and sign a one-year prove-it deal for relatively cheap and end up being a receiving threat, assuming they don't end up on the injured reserve. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.